Okay, I think we'll get started just to make sure we have enough time for Republic Services and everything they want to share for the webinar today. But hello, everyone. My name is Randy Walkins, and I'm the coordinator of the Treasure Valley Clean Cities Coalition, the Treasure Valley being located in Idaho, in southern Idaho. We have a nationwide audience here today, not just folks from the Treasure Valley. So for those of you who are not in the Treasure Valley, welcome to the webinar. We're excited to share information with you and hear from our public services about their experience. So thanks so much for joining us here. And I have a few housekeeping items before we get started. So first being, please keep yourself muted until the end of the presentation. We will wait and hold questions until the end. And at that time, if you'd like to, you're welcome to raise your virtual hand using your that feature on your screen, or you're welcome to enter your questions into the chat function. And I'm happy to go through and pick out the questions at that time. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available for later viewing. Please give us about 2 weeks to post the webinar recording, and I'll send out an email to the list of folks who RSVP'd yes to this event so that they can have access to that recording. With that, I'd love to get started. So first, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our presenters. We have Rachele, Klein, and Bob Bennett of Republic Services joining us today to share their experiences with their heavy-duty electric refuse truck fleet that has now been in operation for over a year. Rachele Klein manages municipal services and government affairs for Republic Services and joined their team in 2005. Bob Bennett is the general manager for 8 locations in the Greater Treasure Valley, so has a lot of fantastic kind of hands-on experience with the fleet. And then we also have the pleasure of Billy Cecil of Republic Services joining us to help answer questions. Sounds like Billy's actually supposed to be on vacation right now, so thanks so much, Billy, for taking the time to spend a little bit here with us to share your experience. But Rachele, Bob, and Billy, thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm Rachele, and we appreciate the opportunity to share our story, and we definitely are here to answer questions for any of you that might be thinking of taking a similar journey. So from a high level, I guess I'll start with our company vision. And it takes a vision to bring a project like this to fruition. And it's a 3-legged stool for us at Republic Services. It really comes, this move to electric trucks really was based on the environment, our customers, and our operators. So this is a quote from our CEO: "Our destination is clear. Electrification is the future. Customers are excited about its potential. It's a much quieter experience and for our drivers and communities, and most importantly, it significantly reduces emissions." And that's from our CEO this year. And so from a high level, I think it aligns with our vision, and it probably aligns with the vision of some of you on this webinar today. First, I guess, in looking at this this presentation from a global perspective, I just want to say that we are making this decision as a company, and we're great data sharers. So we want our I guess pitfalls and successes. We want to make sure that if we can help you navigate through those along the way, we're happy to do so. One of the first things we talk about is emission reduction. And what we've done is look at the California, the carbon intensity scale. So for those of you running diesel, that's the most carbon intensive transportation fuel right now, at least in the solid waste industry for Class 8 vehicles, with a carbon intensity of 100. And for us, what we run, you can kind of find yourself here on this scale based on the type of fuel you use. We use renewable natural gas in Idaho. We have just under 200 trucks on renewable natural gas, which looks like here it would have a carbon intensity of 43, and that's based on methane captured at from landfill gas. And we actually use renewable natural gas from dairy digesters here in the Magic Valley of Idaho, which has a negative carbon intensity. So we're lucky to have a tie-in close by with a carbon negative source. So we use currently a mixed fleet of, we have some mostly CNG, but we have 5 electric trucks now. We're scaling up to 10 in the near future. So within the first quarter of 2023, we'll have 10 electric trucks on site. And to Bob and Billy. I know that we're all co-presenting, and Billy is our technical expert. So he does manage our fleet of refuse trucks here. He has a huge job, and so technical questions we can pass to Billy. We started this project several years ago, and the first truck that we ran was just a test truck, and it was in Hickory, North Carolina. And that was our first sample truck. And we started this project locally, I want to say 3.5 years ago, isn't it, Billy? It's probably 3.5 years ago where we had the first vision of bringing this together. So I would say projects like this take time, and it's important to establish a long arc to the finish line and be patient. There are a lot of players in this space, and to bring this together at your site. So unlike going out and buying a vehicle, maybe a plug-in electric vehicle and taking it home and just having someone add charging infrastructure to your house, these are much larger trucks, and they take a lot of planning on the front end to bring the project to life. So, and then you can see our second site is in Boise, Idaho. So this, we got our first trucks, gosh, it's been a couple years ago now. The first truck came in, and well, it's been over a year, I guess, since it's been in operation. And we've had really strong, positive, I guess, results. And when you're looking at your site planning, I guess the first thing I would suggest is identifying a truck. Like, if you're in our industry, it's a refuse industry. So I would say, look at the trucks that are available and find one that you're interested in or you're familiar with. In our case, we went with US manufacturers that we were familiar with. They're legacy partners of ours. We were comfortable getting supplies from them. We knew how the bodies worked, and they kept the bodies similar in electric trucks to the CNG trucks. So we identified a potential partner first with a battery that looked like it could get the work done 1-for-1 for our natural gas trucks. And from starting there with a potential vehicle, then we had to go to the next step was to go to our utility. We had to find a charger, and we had to find to confirm with our utility that the power would be there to charge these trucks. So there are the trucks, the chargers, and then the operational perspective that you need to take into account really from the starting block. So next, let's see. So the trucks themselves. So we here in Idaho, there are multiple manufacturers. First of all, there new players are entering this space every day. We've evaluated multiple technologies. We have a corporate team that does this, and really I would say that the truck that meets your needs may be different than the truck that meets our needs, for example. So, the trucks that we know of in this space today are, Peterbilt, Mack, Lion, and BYD, and I know there are others that are coming on daily, and we're evaluating those technologies too. And we believe they're going to be a lot of right ways to the finish line. So what you might evaluate today and find works, keep that working, but keep your mind open for other possibilities that are out there. So once you look at the trucks and you're going to have to do some modeling. And I think temperature for us, we're in Idaho, so we have a cold climate. I think today the high is 30, low 30s, like maybe 35. So seasonally, we have really hot summers, really cold winters, and the batteries need to perform during those temperature swings. And so for us here, the battery size is important. We have a neighboring company that actually also uses electric trucks, and they have a much tighter circle of their routes to their transfer station, so they can use a smaller battery. We have a need for a much larger battery because we have a big geographical area that we have to cover with routes. So just out of the chute, you're going to have to consider your route distance, like how far each truck needs to travel each day, the number of lifts that you're going to do. So whether it's a rear load truck or a side load truck, you're going to need to look at the number of times either the mechanical arm on the back is being lifted or the containers being dumped into the back of the truck. Elevation is important. Distance to your post-collection site is important. So whether you're going to the recycling center or a transfer station, you're going to need to know when that truck leaves in the morning, how many hours it's going to be working, the elevation, the number of stops, the number of the time to break off route to get to a post-collection site like a transfer station or a recycling facility, and then back on route and back home. So that modeling was really important for us. And we decided to start, we can get into a little bit later, but we decided to start with a fairly light load. So we started with recycling first because we were much more comfortable saying we could fill the truck first, the volume versus weight with recycling. So we went ahead and decided first to run these routes with recycling. And what we found was we were successful on the rollout with 1-to-1. So we planned accordingly, we modeled correctly, and the trucks that we've rolled out to date have been able to replace their CNG counterparts on a 1-to-1 basis. And charging infrastructure is really critical, and this is one place where we've learned a fair amount along the way with from where we started to where we are now. So I would say look for technology that is available. And so for us, we had a wish list that we went to a charging manufacturer with, and you know, they're developing software to meet our needs along the way. If there's something available that meets your needs today, I would, oh yeah, good. So Bob did mention we purposely chose routes that were close to our hauling facility. So we chose routes that we were confident we could complete the route within a day without a midday charge. That was really important to us. So selecting the right route and the right driver was also, the driver was also a critical piece there. Somebody who, you know, accelerates and decelerates slowly, you know, is a really consistent driver. It's important that they take care of their truck and, you know, not, I think that finding the right driver to roll out on this project who's open and positive and willing to embrace new technology, I think driver selection is critical. And we've been fortunate in having a number of good drivers to choose from, and they've done a really good job. And I think that is something that we should keep in mind too. On the charging infrastructure, though, getting back to this was really important. We bought chargers first that were not coupled with smart charging software. So the driver would come back at the end of the day, you know, and the state of charge, you know, remaining state of charge when the driver would return to the yard would vary based on their route day, and it would vary based on the temperature, you know, driver behavior too. How fast are they driving on the freeway to and from the route or to and from the recycling center? You know, that those pieces are important to consider. And then when the driver would return at the end of the day, we would just simply plug these the trucks into the chargers and let them start charging. Well, you know, we weren't charging in off-peak hours, so we were paying a little bit more. And we didn't want the drivers doing a ton of math at the end of the day, right? Everybody's tired, and come in and try to program a charger to kick on at 9 p.m. and have it ready by, you know, 3:30 or 4 a.m. It was a lot of work looking at the charging infrastructure and getting the truck hooked up. It was too much. So I would advise to say, look for smart charging software that you can set your route day ahead of time. So each of our trucks now, what I mean by that, each of our trucks has an electronic signature that when plugged into one of our chargers, it can be read. So when we plug into one of our chargers, the charger will now recognize the truck and say, on Monday, we know these are the route metrics for Monday for this truck, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And based on those route metrics, which are adjusted seasonally, obviously we have more in summer than we will in December. But based on those route metrics, you know, the battery life coming back there'll be more or less remaining battery charge, and the smart charger will recognize that and kick it on at a time during the off hours when it will have enough time to charge and be ready for that driver the next day. I think that's really important in also working with your utility to know when your demand charges will kick on. For us, we have a great partner. It's Idaho Power, and they have had, support for us since the beginning of this project. They've helped us do the modeling. They've come out and looked at our site. They've walked our site, helped us. For us, we needed to initially roll out an additional 1,000 kVA transformer. That was a big change from where we were before. So that infrastructure piece, just to add the chargers, took us a year. It took us maybe even longer than a year. We had to work through the city and get a permit. We had to find a contractor that was familiar with installing electricity for these chargers. And it was slower than we thought it would be. So I would say, with the chargers, find a good, I guess, electrical company that knows how to install the chargers. Have a partner with your city or your county, whichever the case may be, who can advocate for you on the permitting side, because sometimes these permits get bogged down. And to keep your project moving forward, it's nice to have an advocate at the municipal side to move these forward. For us on the chargers, another very simple thing that I would say keep in mind when you're looking at chargers, like let's say you have your truck and now you're just shopping for chargers. One thing that we really have enjoyed is having a display on our charger. So when we upgraded our charger to a smart charger, which we just now are getting these installed, but when we upgraded our chargers, we lost the display. And the display, when you bring one of these trucks back into the yard and actually connect it, the display tells you your remaining battery life. It tells you if your truck is even connected properly. There's a shake hands kind of graphic that comes up on the screen if the truck is charging correctly. And if it's not charging correctly, you don't see the truck and the charger shaking hands, and you know something's amiss. And for the drivers and the employees here, we really appreciate that display. I mean, we have access to all of this online, but it's much quicker for technicians, let's say pulling a truck off the line to work on it, to see how much time they have. Like, let's say their battery charge is only at 45%, and they've got to do, preventative maintenance on this truck. Well, they know that this is going to have to be a priority to get this truck back on the line to charge without logging in and looking at data online. So I think having a display is really important, regardless of who you choose to go with. And for us locally, we're trying different chargers as well. So what we started with is not what we're going to be using in our next few trucks. So we're going to be trying out different chargers and seeing which ones work the best for our use. And that's okay to have multiple brands. One of the things I would suggest, though, is when you're looking at chargers, know the type of charger. So, for example, some of the brands that we looked at do sequential charging. So if you bring 4 trucks back at the end of the day and plug them in, and they're all supposed to start at 9 p.m. when electricity rates drop. There are sequential chargers which charge the first one all the way to capacity, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. But the problem is, if you're like us, not all routes leave at the same time each morning. So sequential charging was not the right fit for us. So we had to go with smart chargers that recognize the amount of time each truck has to charge, and the trucks that needed to be charged quickest would roll on first. And this is particularly important if you have a larger fleet. I mean, if you have a couple of trucks, it probably doesn't make a difference. For us, we'll have 10 by the end of Q1 2023. So it's really important for us that these smart chargers don't charge sequentially, and that we can roll them on as we need them to be ready to roll out in the next morning. So, and our utility has been great telling us how we can save money on the charging. We're fortunate here to have a very affordable power source. So our energy portfolio lends itself to electric vehicles. We're hydro, solar, wind. We have some coal, but we have a commitment from our utility to be all providing all clean energy by, I believe it's 2045. And I can confirm that, but I think it's 2045. We have a commitment from our utility to have all clean energy. So it's important for us, some parts of our country are really coal heavy, and so those may not be the best places to roll out electric trucks. So I would encourage you to know your energy portfolio when you start this, and also the cost of your electricity. For us, it turns out that once all these trucks are in, it'll be more affordable than renewable natural gas, and definitely much more affordable than diesel. So there is a financial component. And I guess we'll have questions. I see questions popping up on my screen, but we will answer questions, I guess, as we get closer to the end. So EV equipment considerations when you're looking at your trucks. I mentioned this earlier, but when routing for us, we picked routes that were pretty close to our charging infrastructure, especially when launching kind of a fledgling fleet of electric trucks. It was important for us to pick routes that stayed fairly close to home. Again, we chose recycling over trash just because we wanted to make sure first that we could load out on these. The batteries do add weight. And so it was important for us to make sure we maximize the use of the truck. And so what we're seeing is lighter batteries coming online, and we're seeing more powerful batteries coming online. So I think that really heavy batteries, everybody recognizes those are problematic in industries like ours. And so there's definitely research being done, and we're seeing the evolution real time of these trucks. And on the maintenance side, I'm going to hit some highlights, and then we can come back to maintenance. That seems to be where we get the most questions. And then I'll let Billy dive in. But we, these are actually simpler trucks to work on than the diesel and CNG trucks. We have really pushed the industry forward in that we asked for training manuals and safety manuals. And so these manufacturers are making these that, they'll have for everybody. For us, with the type of truck we use, there's a orange line, and we don't touch that. And that's where the electricity is. And we know our drivers know, our technicians know, there are things that we can work on and things we don't work on. But they are the simpler and actually more affordable than diesel and CNG. And the tires and brakes are lasting longer. So with regenerative braking, you think of a golf cart where you let off on the gas or the accelerator, and the truck or the golf cart will immediately start slowing down. And that's the same with these trucks. So if you have a driver that is really mindful of this, you can really see extended life, definitely of the brakes and tires. So, and we're collecting data on this, and so we'll have an idea of the impacts and the benefits of electric trucks versus CNG as we collect more and more data. But right out of the chute, early on, we're seeing real maintenance benefits. And this also is important in the partners you choose. So when we do need parts, we have a long history with legacy partners, U.S. manufacturers. We're a big buyer, so our procurement teams work closely with the procurement teams from these folks that supply us the trucks and the parts. So when we need parts, we get them, really when we need them. And also our maintenance manager in our shop, I say they're kind of like whalers. They can look out way off of the future and see what potential needs are, even with supply chain interruptions. And they order early to keep the parts ready in the event we need them. And if you it's good to have a partner. For us, we have other, divisions around the country. And so what we find even now is, at least on the CNG front, is people will call us for, if they're needing a part and they can't get it quickly, they can reach out to us. It's good to know who your partners are in this space. And if you do need something, it's okay to reach out to them for help. When we started the CNG project and moved the fleet to renewable natural gas, we found a partner in Valley Regional Transit, which is our local transit partner. And so if our infrastructure went down for fueling, we had a reciprocity agreement to use theirs, and vice versa. I would suggest too, in the event that you decide to go with a Class 8 heavy duty electric vehicle, that where your charging options are. In the event that your infrastructure is down, where else can you charge? And just have that as part of your playbook to know, and talk to those folks ahead of time. I think along I-84, which is our interstate that runs east-west through Idaho, Walmart has committed to having fast chargers. And so we do know that if something goes awry here, that we have we can use public chargers, but it's good to know where your other charging options are in your area. And that, yeah, I'll let Billy speak more in the end to what kind of modifications we had to make to the shop. Certainly safety wise, we had to really do a lot of training around the safety of, handling these electric vehicles. We also, on the operations front, just, I'm proud to say we're helping everybody who's entering this space, because we got our hands on one of these trucks early, and our team, by operating it and having an experienced maintenance manager, we were able to drive real change to the manufacturers. Simple things that could throw off a whole route. Like, for example, after a long weekend, one of our electric trucks wouldn't turn on, and it turned out, I want to just, sarcastically say it was like a 1.9 volt needs to kick on the whole system, and that was dead. So what we did was essentially build in, or ask the manufacturers to build in, a battery tender to keep the small battery that charges the big batteries in the truck, keep that alive and well, so that one small thing like that can't derail an entire route day. And we can speak a little bit more on the maintenance side, and changes that we made to these trucks to date, and where we see them going from here, just from where we're sitting. And having a team of trash folks, our operators are people who the first driver that we put behind the wheel has been with us for many, many years, and he told us immediately things that he liked and things that he would like to see changed in the future. And so we're seeing those changes come back, and that will benefit everybody across the industry. Yeah, and so obviously, like, the key factors here, these are more fuel efficient than diesel. They do require much larger batteries. The balance is, size with payload. But backing up to the batteries themselves, one of the questions we get regularly is, what are you going to do with all these batteries when they're at the end of their useful life? What's going to happen to these, and are they environmentally really harmful? Are we creating a problem down the road that we're going to have to address? And the reality is no. I mean, I think the manufacturers now entering this space, and every one of these electric vehicle spaces, they're all stepping up and committing to, longer battery lives, number one, but secondly, to taking these back at the end of their useful life, and recycling what they can, and processing these in a safe way. So we don't expect, our hauling division to be filling up, hazardous waste landfill in 10 years. We don't see that happening. I think this is quickly evolving, and there's a demand for these spent batteries for the materials that are left in them, and to capture those and ferret out what they can, and reuse those and recycle them. So we do get that question a lot, and I think you'll see if you step into this space that's not that has changed. And anyway, so I think the battery piece is going to be okay in the future. And on the performance, we're pleased with the performance we're seeing. We started with 396 kilowatt hour batteries. From there, batteries have gotten bigger. So I think we'll see enhanced battery sizes in the next generation of trucks. We specifically chose not to run these trucks. We have a pretty sizable grade up to the landfill. So we chose to run these initially on a pretty flat area. I mean, there's a small incline to the recycling facility, but we chose, again, looking at the routes, terrain does impact how these trucks perform. So our operating routes with these electric trucks are relatively flat. And again, we hit volume before we hit payload, and that was by design. The next round of trucks we're probably going to introduce into trash, and we'll have better data there. And again, we chose recycling facilities which are close to our routes, and we chose the right drivers to launch with. And that's probably not something that everybody thinks of, but it's really important that all of the drivers are trained on them. And one of the things, when we first got these trucks, the mayor of Boise happened to be walking to work. Oh no, she was running actually downtown, and we were doing a photo shoot early in the morning with one of these trucks. And she saw us and she ran over and she said, "Can I go for a ride and jump in one of these trucks and see how it works?" And we said, "Sure." And it was interesting. Oh, yes. Okay. So I see some comments, Billy. We're gonna have to come back and make sure we incorporate all those comments. But one thing, the driver, had I given the driver some items to, coached him up to say certain things about the trucks, it wouldn't have matched what he came up with on his own with the mayor. And what the driver said was, "I'm proud to be part of this project because it gets us ready for the future. Our drivers that are behind the wheel of these Class 8 vehicles, we are very marketable. We understand how to maintain these trucks, how to drive these trucks, how to charge these trucks. I mean, everything about operations, the advantages and disadvantages. The drivers love that they're absolutely quiet." And so he came at the mayor's question from a very driver-centric position, but felt like he was proud to work for Republic Services, proud of the investments we're making, and really felt like that he was part of the future of solid waste in general. I mean, of the whole industry. And so that, there's some data that you just can't quantify. And I would say driver affect is one of those things. So, and costs. Okay, so the cost of these trucks, I would say generally they're 2x of what you're paying today. So, we buy a lot of trucks every year from manufacturers. So, your procurement team will get different pricing probably than our procurement team. But in general, I would say they're twice as much as the trucks that you're buying today. And in addition to buying the trucks, you do have to buy the infrastructure. So it is a significant investment, but it also makes your site more valuable. Like once you put in this infrastructure, electric charging infrastructure, it does make your site more valuable. It is a good investment. For us, not every project is huge, but you will have to work with your utility to see if you need a new transformer. I mentioned we had 1,000 kVA transformer added for our first 10 trucks. The next wave of this project, we actually need a substation. So it's bigger than adding another 1,000 kVA transformer. And the question is, these are new distribution lines, which all comes with a cost, new conduit, new charging, and then the new chargers, buying the chargers themselves. That being said, there are savings on the backside. And so for us, when you're looking at the cost modeling, our electricity we have probably some of the lowest electricity rates in the country. And when you become a large user, you get even different rates. So the type of rate we have is not the same rate we would have at our home or our small business. So we are an industrial user, so we have a different rate class. We're in a different rate class entirely. And again, we talked about the battery size of these trucks. They're large batteries, and for the type of chassis we have, they line the frame. I guess the rail. Bill, you can probably speak more to that. So they're loaded on the bottom of the truck versus behind the cab. And that probably is just going to be very manufacturer specific. But what we are seeing already is maintenance is lower for the electric trucks than it would be for the diesel or CNG trucks. And we can probably talk a little bit about preventive maintenance and what that looks like in an electric truck versus a CNG truck in our case. And I would say once you pick a partner, I would ask your partner what incentives they have. I would ask, ways to offset these costs. There are grant funds out there. And for us, we have always leaned on grant funding to launch big projects. We were able to secure $6.8 million to convert our fleet from diesel to compressed natural gas. And we're close to $2 million in funding for this project and to convert from CNG now to electric trucks. And that was really, we have used Volkswagen mitigation grant funds that were offered through Idaho DEQ. And we also got a utility grant as well. Idaho Power had some grant funding available for infrastructure. I would check with your state to see where they are with Volkswagen grant funding. For us, we're starting our third and final round in Idaho. But I know some states are just getting started. So there's grant funding out there. With the new Green Deal that's out there, we're estimating, it varies by state, but it could be close to $40,000 per truck offset. Every state is going to have different grant funding. Utilities will each have their own grant funding. But I would say, don't be afraid of asking your Clean Cities Coalition for support on any grant writing. I know that our Clean Cities Coalition has stepped up always to help edit and review grants before we submit them. And we have a great partner with Idaho DEQ also. So they've been really supportive of this conversion and helping us along the way. So the grant funds are out there, and Clean Cities Coalitions are experts at finding funding for folks. Whether it's a school bus fleet or whether it's trash trucks, I think the goals are the same of these coalitions, and they're very helpful in securing grant funding. You might also be able to, partner. I know that for us, like we have a facility in Meridian, Idaho, and we have a fleet behind our fleet. So we have a bus company right behind our transfer station, and they've approached us on several occasions asking if we would be willing to partner on infrastructure if we run natural gas there. If you're looking at a major upgrade in electricity, you may have a partner close by that's willing to share some of those costs with you as well. So, okay. And again, safe questions. I'm sure we have some out there. So new training that comes with these trucks. When we first started this project, there was really very little training, and technology requires specialized training, whether it's for first responders, whether it's for the maintenance people, or whether it's for operators, or whether it's just for all of the people that work with you to have a better understanding of the technology to further adopt it and appreciate it. So we worked with these manufacturers to say, where's your training manual? And, it took a little bit of time, and I think that they were working in real time also, but they have put together training manuals for us. And we, with our public services, we have a training institute. So we, when technicians are interested in coming to us, but maybe are interested in it and working on these trucks or any trucks, we have a training institute where we will put people through the training. We ask for a 1-year commitment back for that training, but we do get folks trained up to work on these trucks. And other companies, that might be something that you might look at too, if you're trying to recruit having a good maintenance team is really, really important, and having good, well-trained technicians is really the root of success in keeping these trucks working every single day. So I would invest in training. We've always done that here, and we take pride in our technicians having the certifications that they do. And that's not something that we put training in and then we rest. It's constant training and just sharpening the saw all the time. And I would encourage you, if you go this direction, to just continually invest in the training. So we do that. Every manufacturer, at least that we've worked with now, does have a training, a manual for the operators, technicians, and first responder trainings are available. So locally, we've worked with our Clean Cities Coalition to pay for, first responder trainings, and whether it's like natural gas or electricity, powered trucks. I would say, don't be afraid to ask your Clean Cities Coalition to help with first responder training, because I think that's really important for them also, to know how to respond if one of these vehicles is in an accident. Also, things that you don't think about, like if a truck breaks down, you don't just bring it out into the yard on a hook on a tow truck. It's pretty specific in how you have to disengage the truck so that it can be hauled by a tow truck. And so that's included also in this kind of training. So if your battery dies on route, which we haven't ever had happen, but if it dies on route, you need to be able to get that truck back to your yard for charging. And it's pretty specific on how you do that. It's very different than a CNG truck or a diesel truck. And so on the accounting and merger training, so we we work with cities that are data driven. They want to know that these are good investments and what their role is. And we've been fortunate in having a really strong municipal partner, Boise, stepped up right away and was very interested in this rollout. I think that's important to, share the data with them and say, is this an investment that you want to make and we'll make with you? And there's risk on both sides. But I also think then we emerge together as, as successful partners in sharing this story. We are working with other cities too who've stepped up and said, we really want to consider paying a premium for this level of service. We value, reducing carbon emissions. We value we think this is the way of the future. We are interested in making these investments. So I would say be bold in asking your partners if it's something that they're interested in. For us, we've historically reported diesel gallons burned under this contract or CNG diesel gallon equivalents burned. And now we're reporting the amount of electricity used to fuel the fleet. So it's an evolution, and we can show the costs associated with each. And for, many of our cities, I would say if they have a climate change plan or, an interest in reducing carbon emissions, they would be interested in this. I think that for buses and trash trucks, we're quasi-city fleets. And I think finding strong municipal partners is really important as we roll this work out around the country. Legislative opportunities, I think every state is different. I would say in Idaho, we're pretty hands-off with a lot of legislation, but I think that if you are in a state, there are ways to create state incentives to increase the number of electric vehicles. And, if you're interested, we can pull together some legislation that's already out there. And, so some examples that we have around the country that we're working on now is, research and development offsets. So if we're making these investments, can we get basically tax breaks or incentives for making the investments in infrastructure and the investments in improved air quality? And, for the West Coast states, this seems to be much more popular. I think we have a lot of legislation in our California market that's coming down pretty quickly. We see less of that here, but just know that there are legislative opportunities if you work with, if you band together with others, or if you're interested in sample legislation, we can pull together what's out there, and it might be something that you can use in your state. And certainly having climate goals is important. If your state has climate goals, they're going to have some sort of plan to reach those goals. Work with your local legislators to see what those are already, or you can work on with some proposed legislation to bring forward that would help advance electric vehicles. The private sector, that I think it's important that the private sector, just speaking for me, I think that it's important for us to show that these trucks can be successful and rolling out, that financially they do make sense. We've hired an engineering firm to monetize some of the benefits of reducing emissions. So in markets where we had diesel and then we flipped to renewable natural gas, we were able to actually monetize the benefits, not just in cost like maintenance savings or fuel savings, but actually like reduce emissions, which would result in fewer asthma cases, or they actually were able to put together a one-page sheet for us to take forward to say, it's not just about the health benefits are out there in addition to just, cleaner air is important, but so what? So why do we want cleaner air? And I think that's where we get to the root of why we're all working to reduce emissions here. And again, finding, so we're committed as Republic Services to making these investments, and we're learning along the way, and we're not deviating from the course. And, we think electric trucks are definitely the way of the future, but maybe hydrogen comes, into play in a few years. We're constantly leaving our options open. We're constantly reevaluating what we have and where we're going. And I think that's important too, is to lean on each other and see what's out there and what's working in our space. Finding scalable partners, we talked about that, to build out, we're looking at a build out in Boise that's pretty significant, and know who your partners are. For us, it's utility, it's a city partner, and let me see here. Yeah, continued collaboration with your government and other early adopters. We have a local small trash hauler here in the area that they're an independent hauler. They've been around for years, and they went electric the same time we did. And we're constantly bouncing ideas off one another and seeing what works and what doesn't work and what we can do to improve the success of these vehicles in our market. And that's been really helpful. So I would say know your partners, and you can consider us a partner. I mean, we're in Boise, Idaho, but just know they don't have to be your next door neighbor to be a partner in successfully rolling out Class 8 heavy duty electric vehicles in your area. And with that, I know, Randy, we wanted 15 minutes for questions, and I think we just got there. So sorry if it seemed kind of rushed, but I know I could see questions popping up on the screen, and we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachele. I think Billy and Bob pretty well covered the questions that were coming through the chat. And I see, let's see here, we have at least one hand raised. Craig Peters, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question, Craig.
Well, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great. So I actually have a few questions just to clarify. The vehicles that you're a Class 8 that you're using, you're not using them for trash. You're using strictly for recycle at this time?
Yes, we're using the first three were set aside for recycling because of the weight. Yeah, we're seeing about a normal Class 8 rear loader weighs in about 36,500. And the current EV, same configuration, same wheelbase, is weighing in at 43,000. There is a $2,000 or 2,000-pound waiver that you can use, for like CNG and EV equipment. So that gives us another 2,000 pounds available, 1 ton. And so we thought that we would start out with, EV recycle first. Again, we started this February of 2019, and we wanted to make sure it was very successful. And those were, the choices we picked so it would be successful. And so far, with over a year of operations under our belt and several hundred hours of operations, we think we made the right choice at this time.
That's great. So are these sidearm or rear loaders that you're using?
So these are rear loaders that have the capability of picking up residential. So we can pick up residential, we can pick up commercial, anything can go in the back of this truck.
Okay.
And, yeah.
And the reason for that is we're really alley heavy. You can see this one truck on this question slide. We're pretty alley heavy, and a lot of our utilities have not been pulled underground in these older areas, especially the downtown Boise core and parts of Boise, the north end, east end, and bench areas surrounding downtown are all alley served. So we still use a fair number of rear load trucks, which is why we decided to roll those out first.
Yep. And what manufacturer did you end up by purchasing your first 5 trucks? Were there Peterbilts or Max, or who did you purchase from?
They're Peterbilts. So it's a 520 model Peterbilt, 396 kilowatt hour on the batteries and 650 volt. And what Rachele was talking about earlier, I mean, it has a 12 volt battery that turns on the 650. So if the 12 volt battery goes down, then it will not activate the 650. So that's what she was talking about. So we had the charger company add trickle chargers to the system to make sure that the 12 volt was fully charged at the time of beginning the route.
Okay. And then I'll let somebody else ask some questions. I have quite a few, but I'll just end up with, as far as the chargers, what company have you used for your, for your charging at your facility?
So currently we started out with ChargePoint.
Yep.
And we're looking at other alternatives after that.
All right. Well, great. I won't hog up all the time here. So I appreciate the time. So I'm from the Northeast too, from Connecticut. I'm a executive director of Capital Clean Cities, and I have 4 trash recycling stakeholders that are currently using CNG, but there is interest for electrification as well. But we've actually had some issues trying to get the amount of their routes. They're we're looking for a little more than that 60 to 90 miles. So I don't know if you've experienced longer range than that, but that seems to be one of the, besides cost, of course, and that's pretty significant as well.
Yeah, we've seen actually 100 miles on one route, one day, 11 hours operation with no recharging during the course of the day. But I mean, we specifically picked these routes, just like Bob was indicating, to be successful, and that's what we wanted to be, not have to charge midday, and that's why we chose these routes. And if you have more questions, I mean, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions if you wanted to take my information down.
Yeah, that would be great. Is that something that you can post in the chat, or are you sending these? Is the list presentation to be sent out to everyone who's actually participating today?
As long as Republic Services is in agreement, I'm happy to include their contact information in the follow-up email I send when the recording is available. Does that work for everyone we have here from Republic Services?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. And just to let you know too, our first 3 trucks were rear load. They were Peterbilt chassis and McNeilus body. And our next 2 that we have now are side load trucks. So we don't have a lot of data to share on the side load trucks yet, but the automated side load trucks, but we will have that, by, before too long.
Coming soon.
All right. Well, great. Thanks again. And yeah, if there's either contact number or email that if we have questions, that would be great. Thanks. It was great. Enjoy the day.
Great. Thanks, Craig. And then next we have Matt. Feel free to unmute yourself and share your question.
Yeah, hi everyone. Matt Lerman from the Colorado Energy Office. Also had a couple of questions. I think one thing that I've heard with regards to especially trash trucks for waste is that there's a consideration with battery performance, not just for the mileage traveled, but for the actual operation of the equipment and the loaders. Has that been something that has had a significant impact on range?
So I would say no, because these trucks filled in a same route, and on the compaction side, the amount of dumps, the amount of lifts on the back of the rear loader is consistent with the for regular waste. And so we assume, and we have 2 more coming in a couple of months that'll have tag axles that will go into trash service. So we're assuming that because of the same amount of lifts and same amount of compaction required, we're going to see the same kind of energy, in the rear loader under the trash truck is going to be fine.
And
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll add something in there. I mean, one of our requirements with our suppliers is that these trucks have to run a full route.
Right.
Because we have an obligation to our customer to make sure that we're doing the right thing by them as well. And so far Peterbilt's come through. And I do think it's going to be a test as we add trash on there, we get some longer routes, but I've actually been really impressed with how these trucks have operated so far. And if you're coming out of Colorado, I'm pretty familiar with the Denver market there. Their routes are very similar to ours. They've also got a lot of alleys. So, that's an opportunity there because they've got kind of that same challenge we do with the older city and the alleys where these rear load trucks are phenomenal.
Yeah, that's good to know. I would think that the Republic team here in the Denver region is already considering this. There are incentives available from Excel Energy here. So, if anybody over there does need support, I'm happy to help. I'm leading up our new medium heavy duty infrastructure incentives for the state. So appreciate the feedback. One other question I had was, one is that 2,000 pound waiver for CNG and EVs, is that a state exemption or was that federal?
It's a federal, I believe.
Okay. And then has there been any quantification yet as to the like total cost of ownership, cost savings, greenhouse gas reduction benefit as of yet, or?
So, do you want to go ahead, Billy?
We are currently working on the TCO for the units, but we're pretty excited that we're looking like maybe total cost of ownership after 6-7 years possibly, but that's still working also. And then somebody had a question about brakes too. So 2,500 hours, which is 1 year run on any kind of trash truck. And we still have 95% on the brake lining. So 5% on the brakes is all we've used in 1 year. So, I mean, you can see kind of the cost savings is just kind of just ramps up real quick.
Yeah,
you
asked. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, you asked about greenhouse gases. So we have a dashboard through ChargePoint that I'm looking at right now, and with having trucks on the road, over a year, it's saying that we avoided 125,000 CG of greenhouse gas emissions. So I want to caveat that with, I'm not an expert in that stuff, and so I'm not sitting there calculating it. But that's one of the things we need to be able to tell a story with whatever platform we have, and this is what we've got right now. So it's making an impact with just 3 trucks.
And I would also offer that we are working, we're in the early stages of working with INL, which is our, I guess the Idaho National Laboratory, and they may have changed names, I should say, but we are looking at data that like emissions data there too, and charging data and more in-depth data that we can share with a broad audience outside of Idaho. But also I would say any charging manufacturer now that's coming into the market in this space with Class 8 vehicles, they're going to give this data to you. They're going to show avoided emissions or greenhouse gas savings that that you're not emitting. So that's going to be probably some of the software that you'll get when you start moving forward with selecting the right charger. And back to total cost of ownership, it's so hard to look at what that's going to be. I mean, diesel prices vary market to market. I was just in Los Angeles, and diesel down there is $6 a gallon, and here we're like $4 a gallon. So I think there's a lot that goes into that. Your electricity rates, your if you're switching from diesel to electricity or natural gas, or your fuel costs, there's a lot that goes into that. But we're pretty excited and looking at and saying that the story will work. From what we can see 1 year in, it's going to be a good story to tell, and it's not. We hope certainly it's not going to cost our customers any more, but cost may be the same with much better results.
Yeah, thank you so much for the feedback and for leading the way forward. Appreciate it.
We have time for one more question, and Sean has had his hand raised. So Sean, feel free to unmute yourself, and then after Sean's question, we'll go ahead and conclude.
Thanks, guys. Hey, real quick, was there any conversation when you guys are doing infrastructure about battery integration, whether it's, from the utility side, from you guys? I mean, 1,000 kilowatt transformers is quite big, and obviously you guys are expanding that. So just curious what that conversation looked like during this process.
So the answer to date is no. I mean, that is something that's on our radar. So you're talking about if infrastructure goes down, how are we going to charge these trucks? Are they just going to be sitting there with trash piling up around the city with, dead
Yeah,
trucks?
either that or just to help augment, obviously, some of the power requirements, right? Because you could get some in there at a lower transformer and then discharge from the battery into the trucks at a later time, again, to help with that infrastructure cost.
Yeah, so we are looking at that. That's an exciting possibility for us down the road, but that is something that we're looking at. But we haven't moved forward with that yet, with those investments yet. So, but that is on the table for sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
And actually using the trucks when that, like, let's say on a Saturday or Sunday, and using the trucks themselves as batteries to add power to the grid. Is that like what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? Like
Yeah.
with vehicle grid stuff, obviously California's real big in that stuff right now. There's the idea of, from your guys' perspective, reducing your OPEX related to your fuel or the electricity usage, and obviously your CapEx from the infrastructure usage, not necessarily needing to bring as much power because you can still discharge, you have storage. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to incorporate batteries. So I was just curious what that conversation looked like.
So those conversations are happening. They're out there right now at a corporate level for us. And so we're listening, and I would expect we'll see something, particularly in the next phase, if we expand out, to 30 electric trucks in the next few years, we're going to be looking at all those options. Yeah, those discussions
Awesome.
are happening. We haven't done anything yet, though.
Great. Thank you.
Great. I think with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar today. So thank you so much to our Republic Services team for taking the time to share your story with us all. And for everyone who decided to join us today, thank you as well. I'll be sending out an email here just in the next couple weeks with the recording link for the webinar, as well as the contact information for the Republic Services team that joined us here today. So thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.